about that. Thank you, Christine. She is Leah is so Leah, why don't you introduce yourself? Because the way I put your bio it doesn't read very
Yeah, no,
fluent.
it's fine.
So
Thank you so much. I will I'll go ahead and share my screen as well, and then I will introduce myself. Thank you. So let's see. Do from beginning and okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited to be connected now with the New England Epilepsy Foundation. I came up to the conference. Was a couple months ago almost already, isn't it? And I got to meet a lot of families, a lot of parents in the room with children just like mine that are suffering from epilepsy. I also got to meet people with epilepsy that have epilepsy themselves. So I'm not sure, what this audience entails, but hopefully my story will hit home to some of you. And I'm always happy to take questions afterwards. But I'm very honored to share a little bit about my personal journey with epilepsy and how it led to the creation of something much bigger than just my family. I'm the founder and the executive director for the family's SCN2A Foundation, but my official title, will always be mom. Before I begin, I just want to fully disclose that I'm not a doctor or a nurse or a scientist. I've also never had a seizure myself. I'm just a mom to a very special little boy who does have epilepsy. And when faced with a challenge, we chose to fight. Please feel free to interrupt me also if my internet gets a little wonky. I do live pretty rural. So this is Ben, aka the one. Ben is, we call him the serial hugger because he just loves everyone. He loves water of any kind. He likes playing in the pool, the sink, the bath, and even the toilet if somebody accidentally leaves the seat up. He loves Cheetos, music, hugs, and of course his mom and dad and his Mimi. He also has this amazing ability to win over people's hearts without saying a word or even making eye contact. He's really the definition of truth and love. Because he's nonverbal, though, he functions on a different, intellectually functions at a much lower level than his chronological age. And so that leads to him not being able to do things. Um, so there's a lot of things that he's unable to do. And some of my very favorites are his inability to lie, cheat, steal, be sneaky, or hurt anybody else. Ben is able to do many things too, and some of my favorites are his ability to hug, love unconditionally, and snuggle, and he makes me so happy. Ben turned 15 this month, and that in itself is a huge accomplishment given how sick he was as a baby and the chances the doctors gave us that he'd even see his second birthday. And this year for his birthday, I really struggled. I struggled on the actual day. I was very emotional, and I finally realized it was because I was, everyone's like, "Wow, you're so lucky he made it to 15." And that just hit me like a ton of bricks this year. I want so much more for Ben than to make it to 15, to make it to another birthday. And so that is why we fight so hard for the quality of his life. So, in order to understand where we are now, you kind of have to understand how it all started. And it started out like a fairy tale, to be honest. He was born on a Friday, weighing 8 pounds, 9 ounces, and he was perfect, the prettiest baby in the nursery. But it wasn't too long into his second month that we felt something was off. We just kept bringing up our concerns numerous times to our pediatrician. But because he never fell off of the actual chart for development, all of my concerns were dismissed. They told me that he has an immature nervous system, that I was a paranoid first time mom, or my favorite, he's a boy and boys are lazy. So we just tried to push out the thoughts that something was wrong with our baby, and we cheered him on as he learned how to crawl, pull to a stand, and even take a few steps at his first birthday party. And although he continued to make those strides in his physical motor skills, Right around 11 months, we noticed a regression in his social emotional development. And Ben lost his smile and the few sounds that he was making, which happened to be mama and dada. You could see the bottom left picture there with his towel, hooded towel. That's how he looked. He just kind of went blank. His face went blank. And we just knew something was really, really wrong. We thought it was autism. And so a month later, at his 1 year checkup, we stood really strong and we said, we demand to be heard, and you have to listen to us. There's something wrong with him. And we finally got a referral to get his hearing checked. But we never made it to that appointment. Ben started having seizures 6 days after the appointment. And it took another few weeks to learn that the seizure type was something called infantile spasms. So there's really few words. I'm sure some of you on this call can relate to this, but there's few words to describe how it feels to receive a life-altering diagnosis like this for your baby. My husband and I, we just felt like our lives were flipped upside down and we seemed stuck in time, just frantically hoping that the doctors might be wrong. And I just kept asking why? Why him? Why us? Why is this happening? And the doctors just weren't as concerned with the why as they were with stopping his seizures, understandably. So I started searching online for anything that could help me understand what was happening. Um, I don't recommend Googling infantile spasms when you're in a dark place, because I remember this is, 13 years ago now, but the first article that popped up was Little Seizures, Big Consequences. It was a pretty devastating diagnosis. But it's also when I discovered the power of social media. I posted a question in an infantile spasms support group, and I had 18 answers within a few minutes, all from moms who had been there before, and they were a wealth of knowledge. And although several of our doctors were telling us to avoid that rabbit hole of Google MD, these moms, they taught me everything I needed to know, how to get Ben the best care, the questions I needed to ask, but most important, they taught me how to advocate. And they also taught me that there's almost always a cause, and that finding out the cause of the seizures could change the course of treatment and ultimately his future. So our road to finding that cause wasn't smooth, and our first two neurologists, they never even suggested genetic testing. Luckily, our third neurologist agreed, and they set us up immediately with a geneticist. This was in 2012, so this is a long time ago, and genetic testing had just started to really get going. It's much easier to access genetic testing for pediatric epilepsy in today's day and age, but back then it was difficult. And it took 6 months to get the results back from this panel, but it told us the answer. It shed light on why our baby was so sick. The panel showed a change in his SCN2A gene. I was just like, SCN2 what? Please slow down and say that again so I can write it down. It was literally just a bunch of letters and numbers to me. It meant nothing. The doctors also told us that we were the only case of SCN2A at their center anyways, and that there was no support group. They also told me that because it's so rare, there's no research, and without research, there is and there never will be a cure for this terrible genetic disease. Ben today, this is actually kind of an old picture. He actually has much more hair now. We let it grow out and it's all curly. It's super cute. But he looks great, right? Healthy, happy, like a typical little boy. The truth is Ben is not well. He suffers from an array of medical and developmental diagnoses because of his SCN2A related disorder. He continues to have seizures, although they're much more controlled now. He's in diapers. He has a feeding tube. He's legally blind. His development is that of an 18-month-old baby. He's completely nonverbal, unable to communicate wants and needs. He's oblivious to danger, and he needs 24/7 supervision. He's been diagnosed with osteoporosis and has to have infusions. He suffers from neuromuscular scoliosis, which was just recently fixed in a very long, grueling surgery where they fused his spine from T4 to L4. Basically, our lives now revolve around a disease. And when we're faced with the choice of acceptance or action, we chose action and we chose to fight it. It goes without saying that we accept and love Ben for who he is today, but we're fighting for a better future for him every single day. I realized all that fighting I had to do to get the diagnosis for him and the right treatment set up, it set me up for the next battle, which is finding a cure for his disease. So, when they advertised this webinar, they said that I was going to be talking about finding your community, and that's the part I'm getting to now. When he was diagnosed, they told me there was no community to connect me with. So I turned to social media again. It had helped me so much. It had been a lifeline for me before, so I decided to harness that power again. So I started in 2013 the first ever Facebook group for people diagnosed with SCN2A. I just really wanted to meet one more mom so we could talk and figure out like what maybe Ben's life would look like when he got older. We just didn't believe that he was the only case of SCN2A in the world. Within 3 months, there were 20 families in my group. And at 6 months, there was 50 families in the group. And our neurology team was shocked by how many patients existed. And the tables turned to where I was now educating them about what SCN2A is. A year later, we started the work to take the Facebook support group to the next level, and the family's SCN2A Foundation was born. We received our 501c3 status, and we began fundraising. So as you can see, Ben is not the only case of SCN2A. And by teaming up with our community, we grew. And now families are being referred to us at diagnosis by their geneticists and their neurologists. This is a really big deal, as no one has to spend time being the only ones anymore. So with each new family who joins our community, the spectrum of what SCN2A looks like also grows. In the beginning, we had babies who were born having seizures. We really thought that that's what SCN2A meant, that babies, seizures, terrible outcomes. And then as genetic testing became easier to access, we started having families join that have never had a seizure. Some of them have very severe and profound autism, intellectual disability, but no seizures. So even still today, we continue to learn about the vast spectrum through the experiences of every single new family that joins our group. And the word families is not a mistake. That's in our name for a reason. This disease is terrible and it affects the entire family. So our team of leaders at the foundation, we fight and strive every single day to improve the lives of not only the child or the patient, but also the entire family. So we have a lot of support programs for families. You saw that Ben was not the only case of SCN2A, and I am not the only parent who chose action. We had become the sum. And let me tell you, there is power in numbers. So this small little Facebook group grew, and some of the parents really stood up and they said, I want to be part of this. I see your vision and I want to help. I want to fight back. So this is us at the American Epilepsy Society conference last year in Los Angeles. We go every year, we set up a booth and we advocate. So our success, the foundation's success is all because of our team, our army. I'm not going to go into detail about everyone on these slides because I know this doesn't really matter to you, but I just want to point out that these are all people that are affected by SCN2A in some way or another. So these are parents, their grandparents, their uncles, they're professionals that worked with somebody that had a child with SCN2A, and they stood up. They work for free. These are our medical and scientific advisors. They're clinicians and scientists from around the world. And again, they work for free for us. It's just amazing how people will, if you have a good cause like this, people will really step up. We finally were able to grow because of a very generous grant from the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. It was transformative for us because it enabled us to evolve from an all-volunteer organization into a professionally staffed nonprofit with the infrastructure which we need to expand our reach and our impact. Before the grant, the foundation was powered solely by passionate volunteers, mostly parents, and we juggled advocacy, fundraising, community support on top of the heavy demands of taking care of our kids with a lot of medical complexities. We also have a scientific team that's made up of contractors. So we can't really afford to hire a full-time science role at this time. However, all of these scientists devote their time in different expertise. So it works out really well for us. This is what we call TASCO, the Team for Advancing Science and Clinical Outcomes. And so we grew. This is 3 years ago at our conference. I probably should have replaced it with a new picture, but our community, the sum, became the many as it grew to include not only the patients and their families, but educators, therapists, clinicians, and researchers, all invested in supporting our mission to find a cure. So in the beginning, it was a lot of, before we raised enough money to have a staff or to fund a lot of research, we focused mostly on advocacy. So we spoke up, we went to conferences, we set up an advocacy booth, an awareness bracelet handed out to a team of neurologists. We showed up, we told our story, we shared our concerns for the community, for the disease, and we just kept pushing it in front of people. And it worked. It worked. By convening people, like-minded people, we grew into a much bigger organization. This is a little exercise that we did just to show that we're doing a lot more than hoping for a future for our kids. We're funding it. So over 5 years, I won't bore you with the details, but to really make an impact on the field, you have to fund research. And this is a poster that we presented a few years ago at AES, but I feel it's a great example about how much of an impact we've been able to have. We used a grant tracking system here, and we evaluated the return on investment between 2018 and 2022. We invested approximately $4.5 million in research, which resulted in another $12.6 million in subsequent funding coming from NIH and other government sources. So sometimes if a little tiny grant will go a long way. We also, because of our voices, showing up, advocating for SCN2A to be considered a gene that's worthy of looking into a cure, we've grown. These are publications over the years, and as you can see, it's gone up significantly and consistently. And we're right now very close to Dravet and Angelman, just with the body of knowledge that continues to gain momentum. A lot of you on this call either have epilepsy or know someone that's affected by epilepsy, and so you know that epilepsy is just a symptom. There's so much more to the disease. So in SCN2A, our kids or the people that are affected, they see all these specialists. A lot of them see the majority that are listed here. It's almost a full-time job, just taking them to the doctor. So what we've done, because the care is so complex and it's really hard to be the expert all the time. So when I would take Ben to the doctor, I would spend half the appointment explaining what SCN2A is and then explaining to them how it's treated. And then I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I the expert here? So what we've done for our community is build these centers where they don't have to be the expert. They're multidisciplinary centers, so you can take your child here with this disorder and you're seen by a team of specialists that all know what this disease is, how it presents, and how to stay on top of the comorbidities or the coexisting conditions that could come with this disease. As we grow, we're so honored and privileged to have been in touch and built long-lasting relationships and partnerships with so many of these communities and different organizations here, because it's really going to take the power of the many to cure the one. And I'd like to just go ahead and end early because I would much prefer to ask you all if you have any questions and have a discussion around it. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. and I'm happy to take questions.
Leah, thank you so much for that presentation. I was lucky to meet Leah through the Dravet Syndrome Foundation Facebook support group because that's what my son was diagnosed with, and there's very similar comorbidities and presentations that go along with SCN2A. And then we had our first ever 3-day New England Epilepsy Convention in September, and we were very blessed to have Leah come and speak and host our Rare track. So this was a great presentation, and I got to finally meet Leah in person after being friends on Facebook for years at that convention. So it was really great. I was just saying today, we had a little bit of a staff meeting today, and I was saying, even though the epilepsy community is so large, it's also very small. And like, you go to AES or you go to these rare events and you meet all these families that you've seen on Facebook support groups or other things. And it's so finding your community is definitely, we at EFNE are here for you. We have resources if you have rare diagnosis. We do have resources to connect you with those foundations as well. But Leah, do you mind sharing a little bit about that initial, like once you got that diagnosis, you said you went online, you didn't find anything.
Sure. Well, actually, it's
What?
it's kind of funny that you brought up Dravet, because SCN2A is a gene that's very similar to SCN1A, which is what is usually changed in the Dravet syndrome diagnosis. They actually told me that Ben has Dravet, and because it was close enough, in their opinion, and they told me to go join your group, the Dravet group, which I did, and I made some lifelong friends in that group. I met you in the group. However, I knew it wasn't my community. I knew that this was different, and I was just so set on finding somebody with the exact same genetic change. Little did I know that this that SCN2A would be such a big spectrum, and even knowing somebody else with a change in the SCN2A gene doesn't necessarily mean you're going to find someone like your family. But it just it wasn't my community, and there was no community for me, so I felt I had to build it. And I know it's unusual, and a lot of people like aren't going to go to that stage of building a whole nonprofit. I didn't mean to either. It was it's just one thing after another, and it just rolled into that. But I'll tell you what, when we get together, when our community gets together at the conferences once a year, the love that you feel when you meet somebody else with the same diagnosis as you do, as you have, it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter what you do for a living. You're just like it's your family, and that has been the most joyful thing that part of this job. And and people always ask me, I don't know how you do it. How do you do it? How do you take care of a sick kid and do this? And I think to myself, I'm not sure how you don't do it because of the joy that I get back from the leadership in this community. When I have a family that calls me and thanks me for setting this up, it just like to me it's mind blowing. I always turn it around, and I'm so grateful for them joining and sharing their story. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. I'm not sure I answered your question though.
You did.
You
Le-
did.
Leah, I have a question for you. So you brought up something really important, and I wanted to have you elaborate on that. You brought up how when your son was a few months old, you knew something wasn't right. Um, do you have any advice for other individuals, either adults that are feeling like something's not right with myself? That initial feeling of knowing something's not right and maybe not being heard or having to keep pushing. Like, I guess my question is like, how did that make you feel in the beginning? And then what did you do to ensure that your son got the diagnosis?
It's a great question. And again, I know that my experience is my own, but I will share my own experience and then I'll give advice as well for others who might be feeling, not heard or feeling gaslit. Because honestly, that's basically what happened. I kept taking my son to the doctor and saying something's not right. And when I look back on the records and the things that I was describing warranted an EEG, but he did not get one. And so it was a very difficult year, and I doubted myself because I was taught doctors are right, and we listen to them. Why else would you pay to go somewhere for someone's opinion if you're not going to listen to it? But I learned a really hard lesson, and doctors can be wrong, and that sometimes you have to push back and be the unfriendly person that nobody likes to be around just to advocate. Um, it's easier to advocate for your child, in my opinion, because you turn into mama bear or daddy bear, and it's easy to push and fight back because it's your baby and your baby deserves more. But when it's you, it's harder. Very few, like I can only imagine, like something doesn't feel right with me, I personally put it off all the time, and I should be listening to my body better, and going in and advocating for more testing until I feel right. Also, it's your right to get another opinion, even a third opinion. That was something that was hard for us to do. The very first time, I felt like I was hurting my doctor's feelings by getting another opinion after they told me at 15 months that my son would not live. And I said, well, I'm going to get another opinion. It took all of my bravery to say that to them. And they said, good. They told me, good, go get another opinion. And I'm so glad I did, because the next place was the one that found the genetic change and led me to where we are today, where, Ben is doing pretty well compared to, what could have happened. But yeah, I think that, when especially when it's your kid, there's so much information available online. But you know how it is, you can Google something and you can pretty much get any answer you want. I find the most useful places are the groups, or the support groups, the online support groups, the forums where you can hear direct experience from another family, and those are the most honest and sincere opinions, and advice, in my opinion.
Does anybody have any questions for Leah or want to share their story with Leah? We welcome you to
Did
share
the
as well. I know
Curious.
what Leah said.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead. Who's sharing?
I was just going to say, I was curious to know if anybody on the call has a child with epilepsy, and if you've been able to access genetic testing to see if you could find the cause. Jennifer said yes. I'm very oh, Christy said yes as well. I'm also happy to I can put my email in here, and if you have questions about genetic testing, I'm sure the New England Epilepsy Foundation can guide you. But if there's anything specific that I can help with, I'm happy to. Um, Heather says my son has SCN1A and was diagnosed years ago. Yeah, that's that's a it's a much more diagnosed, SCN1A and Dravet syndrome are much more diagnosed than 2A.
Your talk has me thinking, because my son does have the SCN1A genetic deficiency, but we've been told by multiple neurologists he doesn't really fit the pattern of Dravet and he doesn't really fit the pattern of DU syndrome. So we're kind of like in the middle of a like weird diagnosis that we don't know what to call. But I feel like there are other parents out there like us. And like, how do I find them? How do we bond together, right?
Right. Um, Christy, did you say there was a positive genetic test for SCN1A?
Yes.
Okay. So sometimes you can get on your genetic report, it might say something like variant of uncertain significance, or VUS, and that means that they don't know. And there was a change in that gene, but they don't know if that's the actual problem. Does yours say that, or does it say pathogenic?
I think it's pathogenic.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. I don't have it memorized, and I don't like, I'm not well versed in genetics. So
No, it's
it's
okay. None of us are.
it's all kind of foreign language to me.
No kidding. It really is. When Ben first had his first test, it came back showing a VUS, a variant of uncertain significance. And I did not know this then, but they will rerun VUSs every year, every couple of years to see if there's anything new and known about that gene, and it could change from a VUS to pathogenic. But if it's pathogenic, then I mean, it's likely the cause, but it sounds interesting that it doesn't fit the clinical picture, right?
Correct. He has like the most of the what do you call it? Seizure patterns, but he doesn't have like a significant developmental delay, which most children with Dravet syndrome do. And just like his seizure patterns are, I think, atypical to both diagnoses.
How old is he?
He's 5.
Okay.
Christy, we
Um,
found the same group as you. So my daughter is 18 and she was diagnosed with epilepsy when she was an infant, and she's had seizures and developmental delays and all kinds of all these pieces. And we fall in that same kind of pattern too. She has variants of unknown that we know are not, there's something wrong with the variant, but we're not sure what it could be or could cause. But Amy, who's my co-partner, my colleague, her son and my daughter have had so many, like, she's not been diagnosed with Dravet and she doesn't have the SC2A, but she has so many of the same pieces as her son has. And like we talk about the same medications and the same problems with medications and the same this and that. And it's hard. It's hard because you feel like a lot of the time it's like, where's my people, right? Where do I fit? Where does my child fit? Where does my daughter fit in all of this? She's intellectually disabled. She's on the autism spectrum. She has failed multiple quadruple medications and has gone through so many medications lists and still not seizure, completely seizure free. And um, has the stomach issues and has dysautonomia and has all these hosts of that cardiology, and you see all the specialists because it's everything. Um, and we're always like right in that middle and not knowing, where's our people, right? That's such a hard place to be, because you feel like you just don't fit. Like, where does she fit? Where's her people? So it can be really difficult, and that's a hard place to be when you're kind of waiting. And Leah, you said, right, like they're constantly running her, they have it in the system. So it's like you're almost waiting, right? You're waiting for that flag to come up to be like, there's someone like your child. Like there's someone else out there who's got the same exact variant, and this is what it's being caused. And now we're going to give it a name. Because we're constantly being told that technology and science haven't caught up with each other yet. And that we're almost like the technology's here, but the science is still back here. And we're still waiting to kind of catch up. So it's hard. It's a hard place to be when you're in that middle piece, when there's definitely going to be a name at some point, but when, right? And then what could be causing all this? Because it's a hard place to be when you know that there's variants that aren't right and there's something wrong, but they just can't tell you which one it could be causing and what, what that is.
you're right. And Amy, you know what? I take it back. I did love the Dravet community. I did feel very at home there, even though I knew the disease was not the same. Um, so I think, Christine, what I would suggest is like, and you're already doing it, but just get involved in something, because it makes you feel so much better to be doing something, even if it's not going to make a giant impact. It makes your heart feel better, and it makes your family feel like you're pushing back a little bit and not just accepting this, doom and gloom. I remember when Ben first started having seizures before we knew anything. Oh, am I frozen? Did I freeze? I'm sorry. Um, we walked for the Epilepsy Foundation walks. We did the National Epilepsy Foundation walks. We did them every year. Ben's bunch was a big team. This is before he had any genetic testing. And then we got the SCN1A, we got the SCN2A and told it was Dravet syndrome. So I started fundraising for Dravet syndrome and doing the walks at the Epilepsy Foundation walks, with big Dravet signs. I still have one, and now I took it to a different level with SCN2A. But like all along the way, I've made so many wonderful friends, mostly other moms that kind of understand a medically complex journey, whether it be the exact same thing. And I treasure every single one of them.
Thanks, Leah. That leads me to just, if people aren't aware, I know Christy is part of this group, but we have brought back our parent caregiver support group for children living with epilepsy. And I facilitate that as I am the mother of a child living with a rare genetic epilepsy, Dravet syndrome, if you haven't already figured that out from our conversation. Christy is one of the amazing moms on that group. So if there's anyone here who is interested in that, you can, we meet every Thursday. Right now we're meeting once a week till we get a big solid group, and then we'll kind of gauge the group to see how often they would like to meet. But we do that on Thursdays from 7 to 8. So if anyone's interested, I can put the link unless Christine's already on it, because Christine's really good about putting that stuff in the chat right away. But yeah, I see a couple of Z. I connected with Z. I want to say it was almost 2 years ago. Her daughter was diagnosed with Dravet, and then the Dravet conference came up. Thank you, Christine. The Dravet conference came up and in Minnesota last June, and I turned around and Z was there. So it was so fantastic. I got to meet her in person. So thank you, Christine, for putting that in.
Are you planning on doing the conference again in New England next year?
We are.
We're
It was
hoping, yeah.
great. What
You
a
said it
great
was
place to
great.
connect and meet with other people. And you gave so much networking time. So it was nice to be able to spend some time in the hallways talking to the doctors and the researchers that were there and other families. And it was really, really well done.
Yeah, so if anyone is new to what we're talking about, we called it the New England Epilepsy Convention, NEEC, and it was held in Boston the first weekend in Thursday, Friday, Saturday of September. And we had, Christine, how many speakers did we have? It was great.
I think we had like 92 different speakers that we had at the conference, and they were all top doctors from all over the country. And I'm actually going to put in the chat the link. So if you hadn't had a chance to come to the conference, we actually were able to put up all of the presentation slides. So we don't have the speakers recorded, but we're privileged to put up the presentations. So I'm happy to share that link, and you can go through a lot of the presentations and see the slides from the speakers that they had. We are recreating, so if you have a chance to go on our events page and look at the different webinars that are put up for the rest of the year, we've been able to, some of our most well-attended speakers, they so graciously agreed to come back and do their session again as a webinar. So if you hadn't had a chance to go to the conference and see, we're like, oh gosh, I really wish I could see this person speak. We've been gracious enough to have a lot of the speakers come back and do a webinar for us this year, so that you'll have a chance, and I'll put that in the chat. So I'll put the events in there, and I'll also put the presentation website that we have together as well for all of you.
Any other questions, comments, people want to share?
I just wanted to agree with Leah that the Dravet Foundation people are extremely welcoming no matter what your diagnosis ends up being of. I love them.
I do too. They taught me everything I know. They really did. Like I basically mimicked Dravet syndrome as I was everything I've done. So thank you guys. Thanks for sharing so openly.
And the Gervais Foundation, you know, like Leah said, with her group, it started with a bunch of moms who wanted to find a cure and they needed to raise money and research. And one of the founding moms is still running it. It's definitely a great foundation, and I'm so glad, Leah, that they were able to help you, and
Oh yeah.
you're doing so well too.
Thank you.
I don't want to hijack the conversation, but I want to keep the conversation going. So I'm just going to add that definitely what you said mirrors all of us, right? But like doing something about it, being proactive. So our doctor said we think he has Dravet or Deuce. We're not quite sure yet. He has the SCN1A gene mutation. I'm going to do a little bit more testing, but go home and look it up online because there was nothing, no pamphlet or anything to give. And she's like, just look it up online, look on your computer. I was like, okay. So I went home and opened it up and put my son to sleep and poured myself a glass of wine. And first thing it reads is catastrophic form of epilepsy. And I just cried all night long. But I was determined to find another mom close to me that could talk to me about it, give me some insight. And I just kept connecting and connecting and went to my first conference. And I've become an ambassador for the foundation. And then I started working at the Epilepsy Foundation doing these trainings. And I was asked today at our staff meeting, because Christina and I do seizure first aid trainings for anyone who asks, businesses, schools, organizations, families. And someone asked me today, actually, the founder of the Epilepsy Foundation asked me today, what's your favorite training? And I said, well, I love them all, but the ones that are near and dear to my heart are when I go into families' homes and train newly diagnosed families. And he's like, really? I didn't know you go in their home? I'm like, yep, we go in their home. And Christy, I met because she is one of those families that last Christmas time I went into the home and her parents were there and her babysitter was there and the neighbors were there. And, I did this training. And then when I leave, I it's very emotional, but it's like what you said, Leah, like, how can I not help people? Because I've been there. I know what it's like to be newly diagnosed in epilepsy. What is epilepsy? Like, what is Dravet? What is seizures? What is all this stuff? And I can give back, and it gives me a purpose for why this is the life we live. So it can be a lot. Christine and I both have children with epilepsy, and it's like we work here and we run the support groups and the webinars, and it's like epilepsy all day. So sometimes it becomes a little overwhelming, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Like if the moms who I first met helped me, I want to be able to do that for other families. So it's that's, like you said, find the whole purpose of this, right? Find your tribe, find your people, and you will thrive and you'll have so much support. And you can talk about anything to another epilepsy mom and not feel judged, and they'll get it.
I didn't know you went into the houses. That's really cool. Isn't
Yeah.
it crazy how much we have to know just to keep up with our daily lives, but nobody tells you. So you have to learn it from another mom or from somebody else because no one ever gives you the book that says, here's everything you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk all the time about, so my daughter we were on keto for a few years. And I remember leaving, my daughter goes to Mass General, and we sat with the doctor, we sat with the nutritionist, and they went over keto. And I left there crying, so overwhelmed. Like, how am I going to do this? There's no way I can do this. It's going to be too much. So, of course, I talked to another mom, and her son had been on keto for a year. And I was bawling my eyes out on the drive home, and she's like, you can do this, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. The next morning, she showed up my house with a whisk and a bowl and a bunch of recipes. And she spent like half the day showing me the recipes and how to do it and how to count and do all the things that we need to do in our Excel spreadsheets. And I don't think I could have survived if it hadn't been for her. So it's definitely so important to lean on each other and, just be there for each other because no one else gets it, right? Like Amy and I, we're so lucky we get to work with each other because there's so many times where she's saying something about her son and I'm saying something and we're like, I get it. Like completely don't even act, like don't even worry. She's like, I can't because he don't even explain. Like you're all good. Like we got it. So it's really important. Just keep on having those conversations and finding your village. It's so important to find your village. And I've said that, like, just keep leaning on them. But yes, I think I learned more, Leah, from moms than I think I learned from her doctors. Just being able to ask those questions and getting those pieces and those lived experiences back are huge. And then being able, like Amy said, being able to take what we do and being able to help you guys um, makes it huge because I live in Maine, and when Delia was diagnosed, we only had one pediatric neurologist in the entire state. And yeah. And I remember going into the first appointment after her EEG and her inpatient stays at the hospital, and we're standing there. We still hadn't got, like, no one told us, like, your daughter has epilepsy. Like, so we're sitting there, and all of a sudden, her pediatric neurologist was just throwing the word around epilepsy. And I was like, what? She has epilepsy? Oh, yeah, you didn't know? And I was like, so it's just me, it was hard. It's hard to get that. And then, like, where do you go next, right? Where's that next step? And we're so glad that we can be here for all of you and be that next step and hopefully hold your hand and be there and give you people like Leah, so that you guys know that there's another hand to be held, that there's another piece. You guys come to us, to the foundation, but we also want to make sure that you guys, we can grow that village, right? We want to grow that village for you so that you know that there's other resources out there besides just us, which is so important because I think it's so important to have as many as you can to hang on to when you're going through this really difficult journey.
The other thing I find fascinating about joining support groups is you're joining a group with people from all over the United States and sometimes all over the world. So their experiences are, you get to like pick brains pretty much. Just like Leah's son, my son can't sweat and he overheats, and that's a major trigger for his seizures. So I saw in the Dravet support group, people were talking about ice vests. So I brought it up with his neurologist. The neurologist had no idea what I was talking about. And I'm like, I was mind blown. I'm like, you don't know what this is? It's like a vest with ice. It keeps them cool. No, I had no idea. So yeah, you even if you aren't someone who wants to post things or all that, you can just go on, and if you have a question, you're gonna get people from all over the place giving you answers that your doctors might not know. And like Leah said, when she was getting all these families joining her group, the doctors were surprised there were so many. So it's definitely a great way to educate yourself as
We
well.
have doctors asking their patients to go into our group and ask the group, almost like crowdsourcing an answer, to advise them, like what are people's experience with Capra or, basically anything. One more quick shout out, if there's any way for you to contribute to research in any way, even if it's filling out a survey, do it. It is so much more meaningful than you could ever even imagine. Because of our community offering their information, their data, basically telling their stories, we went from having zero interest in SCN2A to having a company that's doing clinical trials right now for SCN2A and 26 more in the pipeline. So we're going to be booming with treatment options, and it's because of the parents, because they contributed their data, because they answered a question and they shared their experience, so we could learn from it and then tailor new treatments around it.
Perfect example. I just got a registration form for a family, a mom in Canada who wants to, for the support group, who wants to know if anyone has the same diagnosis as their son.
Oh,
as we're talking, I just got that. So, yep.
Amy, can I ask a question?
Jordan, you can always ask questions.
So I'm a community health worker with EFNE, and I work with a lot of parents who have kids with, your standard epilepsy, and then also like lots of rare diagnoses. And it sounds like Leah and I know Amy, like these are um, unexpected, and you have a kid expecting the best. And when it doesn't turn out that way, I'm just curious to hear like what speak to your experience about like what do you lean on? What do you how do you kind of reframe your expectations around what raising your child with this diagnosis will look like?
what a great question, and such a hard question, and such a personal one too. I think it happens so differently for every single person. I pretty much forced myself to come to grips with it very quickly, because I was dragging out the hurt to me just sounded much worse. So I remember very clearly though my husband on the phone with his mother saying, "Yeah, he has seizures, but they're going to be fixed with this treatment this doctor put us on, and once they're gone, he'll be much better." And I'm like, "I don't think you understand. This is going to be a lifetime diagnosis." Um, and he wasn't ready to accept that yet. And I pushed him to do that, and he wasn't ready. So I think it's just like you have to be ready, and do it at your own pace to balance realistic expectations with hope. I still have hope for a treatment in Ben's lifetime that will give him. I don't think it's ever going to be a cure at this point for Ben because he's 15. However, I do think a treatment will bring him some independence. You're just a little bit better, like maybe he won't have to be in diapers, or maybe he'll be able to feed himself. But it is, you lose a lot of friends, you lose a lot of family, people that don't understand. But for me, it was I ripped the band-aid off really quick and came to grips with it. How about you, Amy?
Sorry, I was looking up the Ice Fest thing.
Oh,
I think I heard Jordan's question about like how like what you how you move on and what you do when you get that, right?
And
So
also like I guess because obviously finding your community and getting involved like as Leah's done and finding this whole foundation, um, that is super meaningful in and of itself. But in terms of like raising your child, what what do you rest on?
I will share, and I've shared this before. I was a teacher, Christine was too. We both had to leave our full-time teaching jobs to be full-time caregivers for our children. And so I was used to talking all day long, and now I'm sitting home with a seizing child all day long and can only watch Cocomelon because anything fast on the TV would cause him to seize. Could only have certain toys and like hyper focused on him because any second he could go down. So I couldn't really do a whole lot. So we had early intervention coming in the house. And these women literally saved me at that time of my son's, early diagnosis. And one of them said to me, "It's okay that you're feeling this way." Because I just cried constantly. I literally really couldn't function. It's part of the reason I had to leave teaching. So I just cried all day long. And she goes, "It's okay you're feeling this way. You're mourning the loss of the child you thought you would have. And there is nothing wrong with having those feelings." And it changed my outlook. And because I felt guilty for feeling this way. Um, and she just changed my whole outlook on it. And then like, I relied on these women when they would come. There's three different people that would come in our house during the week, and I would talk to them. And they go in the homes and they do this, so they're used to it. And literally, like you lose family and you lose friends when you get these diagnoses. So I mean, we've said it 1,000 times, but finding your people and finding your tribe is really what saves you.
Thanks,
I hope
Amy. I
that
think you
answered
spoke to
you,
it
Jordan.
perfectly. Yeah, no, I think and that's kind of what I've gleaned is, mourning the child you thought you would have. And just I want to get a better understanding of that as I work with parents.
And the other thing, Jordan, is so with our daughter, who's neurotypical, right? She decided to do soccer for a couple years. And like my husband really didn't like only one of us can go. Well, only to this day, usually it's one of us goes somewhere and the other one stays home. So I was like, I'll go. He's like, really? I'm like, yes. I'm like, you know why? I get to sit on the sidelines and cheer on my daughter. And like those things I know I could never do with my son, I'm doing now. Like I'm living that soccer mom life. And so it was kind of a healthy balance because I would get those things that I knew I wouldn't get from my son, like I would get through her. And again, I would, at first, I felt really guilty about it, like being excited to do those things that a normal mom could do. But I'm like, I'm not going to feel guilt for this. Like, my son's not going to be able to play these sports. He's not going to go to prom. He's not going to get his license. When my daughter does, I'm going to cherish every moment of that. But you've met Isaiah, it's Jordan, you got to work with him. He's amazing. And like, he does amazing things. So we celebrate those things too. It's just a different balance.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
We also, like Jordan, with like my daughter, my older daughter. So Amy and I have very similar, almost the same kind of life living. Um, my older daughter, Morgan, who's 22, Delia's older daughter, has always felt to like almost not pressure that we have put on her, because that's not something we've ever done, but she has felt the pressure of being like, she's going to be doing the things like she went to college. She's going to be able to get married, have children, um, she's a nurse right now. She went to college. She was able to become a nurse. Um, Knowing that it's almost like she has to live for two people, if that makes any sense. Like she has felt like sometimes that because her sister will never be able to do these things, or never have the chance to do these things, that it's almost like sometimes she feels like she's had to live for both her and her sister and have these opportunities and make the most of it, because of the fact that she knows her sister may never have these chances. So it's becomes really difficult on the parents and the siblings as well. And we have a sibling perspective coming up, and if was it January, I think, um, as well, talking about the siblings perspective. But it's can be really difficult in the mourning process. I was texting that to Amy as Leah was saying, and I was like, it's the morning. I'll never forget. I remember the day, and I've told this story to Amy. I, my daughter had been in the hospital so much her first year of life, and I was putting away all her baby clothes. And as I was putting away the clothes, um, I remember that most of her baby clothes still had the tags on them because she never got to wear them, because she was in the hospital and she was wearing the button up because of all the wires and all the cords that, my husband used to always joke and say, didn't we order the cordless model? And I was like, no. But she had like all the tags on her clothes. And I remember just sitting there in her room and bawling and crying and realizing then that I needed to mourn. I needed to mourn for the life that I thought we were going to have as a family, mourn for the things that we thought were going to be that way. Um, and then to embrace this new life. Um, and even with this hard pieces, like Amy said, I think you find so much joy in so many other pieces too, that you don't expect. Um, Pieces where they're the milestones that they take and those milestones that they make are like celebrations and parties every single time they do. I mean, I remember the first time that my daughter could jump off a curb with her 2 feet because her brain wasn't functioning at the same rate. So her body couldn't function at the same rate. So like her right and her left side couldn't line up. So she did so much motor planning just to jump off a curb, and she would try and try again. And then the day that she was able to do it with both feet at the same time, simultaneously, was like a party and huge. And we celebrated that so big. So there's a lot of really big, not great moments, but there's also, I think you learn to celebrate when it's really, really good. And you take those and you don't, you try not to let those go when things are really, really tough, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thanks, Christine.
You're welcome.
Jennifer, you're the mom who just filled out the form for I didn't realize you were on here until just now. You're the mom from Canada who filled out the form. So I hope we see you tomorrow. I'm excited to have you there, and I hope we can find some support for you.
I do have a quick question.
Please go ahead, Z.
So, our daughter, she's 3 years old, just started.
She's 3 already. Oh my
Yes, she is grown, and she's kicking our butts. But it's beautiful. We started the keto, like we've been on Depakote and clobazam, and so lately she's been having the head drops, and they've been noticing it in school. Needless to say, the school, they're kind of scared, and rightfully so. I do understand that. But something you just said about the seizure first aid training, I was wondering, is that something that you could go into the school to do, or is it something that I ask them if they were interested? We create an avenue for you to come teach. The teacher, I love her because she has this tenacity she literally, her eyes is on it. Then the CNA, we had one that we had to fight for because that one literally said Diza was faking her seizures. I'm like, okay, we don't need you around the child because God forbid this kid needs help. You would sit down there and let her go where we could have just saved her immediately. So the very next day they switched her out. Thank God for that. But the new one we have now was literally crying and said, they just threw me here. I don't know what Dravet is. I've never, and she was literally crying when I went to pick up Diza, and she was shaking. She said, that's my license. I feel so scared that if anything ever happened to her, it's me. And I'm like, okay, just catch your breath. I understand how you feel. That was me myself, but somehow, I don't know, the strength comes. So
Yeah.
that I do have, the principal wrote me asking if I could come to the school and observe Diza, and they had a lot of questions for me. I said I'm happy to answer all the questions that they have for me. But I was wondering this part of you coming in and being fairy godmother.
100% Z. I will connect with you tomorrow.
Okay.
And we will set up you can either do an introductory email between me and the director or principal, whoever it is, but I can come down. You're near Worcester, right?
I'm in Springfield.
Springfield. So it'll probably be through Zoom,
Okay.
a virtual training,
I
but
think that's
I'll talk to you tomorrow and we'll connect and we'll figure out all those pieces.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, this meeting right here, I never knew of SC1, 2, and wow, that's deep, but okay. I'm muting myself now.
Awesome. Well, I want to be, it's 8:05, and I want to make sure that we're, cognizant of Leah's time with us. And I just want to say thank you to everybody being here. And Leah, thank you so much for coming and, sharing your story and sharing about the foundation. I did put some links in the chat about the different parts of the foundation that Leah has founded, the SC2A Foundation. I did put that in the chat. I also put in the chat about the centers. We will be following up with an email with all of those pieces, and then with the recording of tonight if you want to review it. But we want to say thank you so much for being here. And Leah, thank you again for agreeing to join us and allowing those conversations to happen, because I think they're so important. They need to happen.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you guys. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.